Hey, just a quick heads up, I'm going to be spoiling all of Serenity, so if you have any real desire to see the movie, then you should see it and come back and watch this video. Okay, thanks.
Serenity, a dip into the world of surrealism and nature through the lens of the digital world and family dynamics. What started as a film, or so I thought, about the blurring line between digital sphere and nature, and how the isolation on islands is akin to the metaphorical barrier that people place between themselves and technology, well, I'm not so sure that's the case, unfortunately. Because, at least the movie kinda explains it all for you. Everything for Dill is explained by Reed when he tells him, one more spoiler warning, that this whole world is just a video game. The whole world around him is artificial and he is nothing more than a program created by his son to spend more time with him. And there's no missing that theme because the characters flat out say it. And the digital world ceases to exist at the end and gives birth to something new. So when the movie ends, I really didn't know what to make of any of it. The whole thing was spelled out for you, which in a movie dabbling into surrealism seems a bit redundant, right? Like, surrealism is all about a lesson in comprehension. That's why there's all those videos explaining the ending to Twin Peaks or something. But this movie ends on a pretty concrete note. I started thinking, and I started digging a bit deeper into what the idea itself means. What does it mean that Dill was just a program the whole time, and that him being a program within a video game gave his son the confidence and drive to kill his abusive stepfather? The movie depicts the action as wrong, numerous characters attempt to dissuade our protagonist from the murder, but it ends on such a high note. Weirdly, in a weirdly fitting way, a familiar quote from Harry Potter comes to mind when I think about this story, or any story akin to it. Of course it's happening inside your head.
Why should that mean that it's not real?
And I think it applies so well here, because a large part of the second half of the story is Dill coming to the realization that everything around him is a construction, it's artificial. It's all happening within the mind and computer of his son. And while that is obvious, and I didn't honestly think it needed explaining, the film seems to be taking the side with the son. That this world he has crafted, while still a construction, is equally valid and real as the world he comes from. That the world within that Dill exists in is just as real as the one Patrick's dad had existed in. Which explains their conversation at the end. Despite being completely removed from the computer, Patrick can still communicate with his version of Dill and recraft the space for the two of them. That the whole movie is a figment of his imagination that then became projected onto the computer screen. And then they can finally be together again. Which is, pretty sweet in its own way. And I think, at the risk of sounding maybe a bit pretentious, I think there's a meta-commentary about creating art to be found here. The film is suggesting that these worlds that exist within our minds, these parallel universes that we fill with characters and life, are just as real and worthy as our own. Thus the art we create, the emotions we feel, all of that is true and worthy of being considered real. Whether it be actors, brushstrokes, or just bits of code, they are all valid. That's great and all. But then I also think this brings into question the morality of the film. Because so much of it is all about Dill's will he or won't he dilemma about murdering Frank. Numerous people are trying to stop him, he's given so many chances to back out, but he ends up going through with it, and as the film implies, he gives in to temptation. So why did the two of them get such a happy ending? Why are they rewarded with their final reunion together when everyone tried to stop their tracks? And I legitimately think the film is saying that Patrick did the right thing, or at very least the good thing. From what's presented, the film is more than aware of the audience's opinion of killing someone, whether it be through the obvious biblical terminology of temptation or the financial incentives, because most people would say that killing is bad, and I don't think the film disagrees, but they're attempting to depict this tragic story. You see, everyone that tries to deter Dill and Patrick are residents on the island, people detached from Karen's situation. In fact, everyone points out how she just showed up and she's different, they don't understand her, and when put into the frame of Patrick's mind, these residents might represent people's preconceived notions about killing people. No, you should never kill someone. No, just beat him to teach him a lesson. No, don't do it. Also, I think it's a point to be made that no one on the island fully understands Karen's situation. No one really knows how bad Frank really is because they're so detached from him. And Frank especially is such a monster. Whether or not there's truth to the heinous things he says, this is, at least, how much of a monster that Patrick perceives of him. And only by Patrick choosing to ignore those preconceived notions of morality is he finally able to go through with the murder he's clearly been planning, and in doing so gains the peace and calmness of mind by choosing to do what he thought was right, and in his mind earning his happy ending. And in a weird turnabout way, that's why it all actually matters. Even if Dill was just a construction the whole time, even if Dill was a creation, Dill, this character, was still able to influence Patrick's actions. Whether that be a commentary on art's ability to influence people or an interpersonal one, the story details that influence that Dill still has with his son, and how he ignored what others might say and what others might do, and why the film rewards that in the end. Is it wrong? Is it right? I think there's a larger conversation to be had about mental health and how people should approach dealing with abusive households, which the movie does not go into, which is a shame, but nonetheless, if the movie's goal is to portray the influenced art or the validity of artificial creations, then I at least think there's something interesting going on there. But for now, that's all I got. Thank you for watching and sharing, and I'll see you next time.